How's everybody doing? I'm going to try not to get you too upset right before you eat. But let me ask a question, and it's not rhetorical. I don't know the answer to two questions. Just by a show of hands, how many people feel that the likelihood of World War III is speeding up, coming to us at a faster rate? Can I see what we're looking at here? Okay. And how many of you, this is kind of a gimme, how many of you think that war is going to include nuclear weapons? You know, most likely it is. And what I want to share with you is actually some good news about nuclear weapons that used to be our civil defense program here. And it is much more survivable than most people think. Now, I'm not making light of the terrible destruction of a nuclear weapon. If you're too close to ground zero, or too close, we're looking at tens of thousands of people are going to perish instantly. I'm not making light of that. But the majority of casualties, what we're seeing, are going to be further out in the blast zone and also downwind because of the fallout later. Both of those things are relatively easy to survive if you had learned beforehand what to do and not do from the first instant of that initial flash. The flash is the first indication. If it happened outside, even in this room would brighten up just for what would be coming through those windows right there. It's incredibly bright. It's off the charts. And there's a delay between that flash and the blast wave that's going to be arriving anywhere from 2 to 4 seconds to 2 minutes before it arrives. And unfortunately, what transpired in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because they were unfamiliar with the effects of a nuclear bomb, most people ran outside to see what the bright flash was, or they had their nose pressed against a window when that delayed blast wave came and shredded them. So it's kind of like lightning and thunder. You see the flash, you got 5 seconds for every mile away it is, and here it comes. So if you are trained to hit the deck immediately, that was a huge number of the casualties that they had. At ki4u.com, a really good news nuke is the starting point. Start there and you're going to find examples from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For instance, one of the people that survived Hiroshima, you would think he's a lucky person. Well, he got out of town, he wanted to go someplace safer, and he went to Nagasaki. And he got there just in time for the next one. And however, he had gone to the police there in Nagasaki, explained to them about this new bomb. There's a bright flash and a delayed blast wave. And as a result of that, they got that word out to all the policemen in Nagasaki. And when that bomb went off, not a single one perished because they had a clue what they were dealing with. And this is the word that we have to be able to get out to people. Because right now, the teachers in the school that have your kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, they're not going to know to restrain them when there's a bright flash outside and they impulsively run to the window to see what it is, and that delayed blast wave, it comes through like a 3-second tornado blast, and it absolutely shreds. It's so needless is the thing that bothers me. And the other thing with the fallout downwind afterwards, the thing about fallout, of course, is it's giving off so much energy, it's very dangerous, but it's also getting weaker very quickly. And in the first 7 hours after a nuclear explosion, you've already lost 90% of the lethal intensity of the radioactive fallout. And in another 7-fold increase of time, roughly 2 days, you've lost 99% of the lethal intensity. And again, without the civil defense training that we used to have in this country, what are most people going to do when a nuke goes off anywhere? They're going to jump in their car and they're going to create a Houston traffic jam, like when they tried to leave, Hurricane Rita was coming in, and people were stuck on the highway, some of them for days. In that first 7 hours, when the intensity is most lethal, is the worst time that you want to be caught out in the open. People need to know to go ahead and shelter in place. They need to learn that they want to maximize distance from the fallout outside, and they want to go ahead and have as much mass around them as they can, and they want to sit it out. And if they can be in a cramped, uncomfortable center place in their house with heavy stuff around them for 48 hours, they're going to be survivors. And a lot of times, too, the fallout is going to be going downwind. The plume is going to be like a thin pizza slice that keeps getting ever wider. And a lot of people won't even need to be sheltered, but without an instrument to tell, everybody needs to hunker down for 48 hours at least, because you don't know if it's coming your way or not. By the way, fallout's aptly named because it's heavy and it falls out. And if you have a white car or white dash windowsill or anything, you're actually going to be able to see it. It's like little black sand. You'll actually be able to see it. So if that may be your only indication that you needed to be inside. Obviously, too, if you are in a building, if you have tape and plastic and you've lost any windows, you need to seal it up so you don't have any of this stuff blowing through here. A lot of the components in fallout, the alpha and the beta, for instance, are not a big concern as long as you can keep them out of your lungs and not swallow it. So the gamma rays is what's going to be going through everything. They're like X-rays. And you want maximum distance, and you want to be in the center of whatever structure you are. And anything heavy you have around you, you want to go ahead and make use of. Crescent Kearney had a great video of doing that in a basement. And all he was doing was taking boxes and just filling them up with dirt or books or anything that has weight. And lead is nothing special. Pound for pound, it's the same thing. Whether it's feathers or lead or whatever, or wood or concrete or water, we're just talking about the mass, the weight. You want to have that around you. So if you're storing water or ammunition or any of these things, pile them up around you. Even food, cans of food or buckets of food, the gamma radiation going through that, even if it was left outside, it's not going to hurt the contents inside as long as it was sealed up and you go ahead and wash it off before you pry the top off so you don't get any of it inside of it. Anyways, it's so easy. The two things that I just shared with you. Duck and cover anytime you see any kind of off-the-charts flash. Just hit the deck for 2 minutes. Get below windows, get down, and then plan on sheltering in place. Unless you've got a mushroom cloud where you can see the anvil blowing it off away from you, if you don't know or if it's at night and you can't tell, you need to go ahead and plan on hunkering down for 48 hours at the minimum. And at that point, 99% of the lethal intensity is gone. But nobody knows this stuff anymore. The first Bush administration started defunding civil defense. The Clinton administration totally shut it off. We got in business with KI4U. This is our 25th year. And what we did, we are the only private, non-government lab in the country that specializes in recalibrating and recertifying all of our old civil defense equipment. And we also, 8 months prior to 9/11, we were able to acquire from FEMA. We cleaned out the Federal Depot in Fort Worth, Texas, of over 100,000 instruments. And it was 416 pallet loads that we brought down to Gonzales which is an hour south of Alpine, where our lab was. And we have the largest supply in the country. And this stuff was headed to a landfill if we hadn't won the bids on it to go ahead and get these instruments. So the instruments, you know, we're talking 50 to 70 years old, but they're still in use by some states and many counties. They use them if they have any kind of a radiation issue with either a train or truck. They'll go out with these instruments still, so we sell them to them. We also do the Nuke-Alert, which you may have heard of. We worked with the RAD triage card. We started with potassium iodide. That's where our name comes from, Ki, potassium iodide 4U. That was our first product. Some ham radio people gave me grief about using Ki4U, so I went ahead and got my ham radio license. I couldn't get Ki4U, but I got Ki4U-CQ. So I got as close as I could to it, and so they've quieted down on me. I have to also give credit to Crescent Kearney, Nuclear War Survival Skills, Dr. Art Robinson, Dr. Jane Orient, and also Steve Jones, who I had hoped to be sharing the podium with, but he's under the weather right now. All of these people, Crescent I never did get to meet before I got involved with the organization. But his Nuclear War Survival Skills book out front, the green book, that is the Bible. What I'm doing with our 4-page good news is I've condensed the really important pieces, and we've made it so that we can get it out to a lot of people very quickly. My concern is that what's happened is with our company we've learned anything happens anywhere in the world nuclear, we're sold out in 48 hours, and sometimes with a single phone call. After 9/11, we got a call from Health and Human Services, and they're calling out of the White House, and I know that because I had to call them back later, and they wanted to know how much potassium iodide we had in stock, and I said we have 300,000 doses, but it's going fast, and they said we want to buy it all, and I said, well, with the manufacturer, I'm on a cash basis. I can't wait 6 or 8 weeks for a government check to show up. What can we do? They put me on hold, and they came back, and they said, we're going to fax you a copy of a FedEx Air bill and also fax you a copy of 3 checks signed by 3 different people, because we have limits on how much each check can be. And you're going to receive all this tomorrow. Will you release the products today? I said, absolutely. What do you want to do, 2-day, overnight, or what? And they said, no, you don't understand. We've looked at your Gonzales Airport in your backyard. It's not big enough. We have a Learjet coming in up at Austin, and you need to be there at 2:30 this afternoon with the product. So anyways, we loaded 660 pounds, which was 300,000 doses, into the back of a pickup truck, ran it up there. I didn't go, we were too crazy busy, but I had a guy go up there and do it, and there's a Learjet on the private tarmac waiting for it. So I gave it 2-3 hours and I called him back, and I'm calling him ostensibly, thank him for the order, make sure you got it. But I'm quizzing him, what the hell's going on? And he says, well, Shane, I can't tell you anything, but you're in the business, you figure it up. Click, hung up. It took about 8 months to get a clue to what's going on, and through some congressmen, what we found out was the Bush administration was absolutely convinced there was a nuke to go off in New York City after 9/11. And to this day, I don't know if there was or wasn't, or what Nest team found it, or it was all made up. I don't know, but they were absolutely convinced of that. The other thing we found out through the congressman at that time is that the current national stockpile of potassium iodide, and this is basically the anti-radiation pill is what they would call it, but it's just for thyroid protection. The national stockpile at that time, 8 months after 9/11, was 600,000 doses. So that's all the government had. And that's only enough for that many people for one time, and they might have to take it for 7 to 10 days. So the reason I share this with you is when they have a crisis, what they do is set up phone banks. They don't have this stuff ready. And we're not in their club either. We probably wouldn't see any of those doses. We heard they were giving them out to FBI agents and stuff like that. So I mean, what it illustrates is you are on your own. You're on your own to get the correct information, where we used to have civil defense in this country, and you're also on your own to make any preparations that you need to make, because they're not set up for it, not at all. Katrina, we had a similar thing happen down there. We had FEMA call us up. We were able to get 12 tractor trailer loads of MREs for them. They got half of them. MEMA got the other half, Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. But all they were doing was calling people up. They do not have this stuff in inventory to do anything about it. Fukushima sold us out also. I mean, within 36 hours, hundreds of orders coming in per minute, and crashing the website and everything. It was nuts. Now the government, federal government, didn't do anything with us for Fukushima, but we had foreign governments and news people going over there. Everybody was wanting it. In fact, we even had major car manufacturer, whose name I won't give, but they were real eager to have a bunch of Geiger counters, because they wanted to make sure what they were sending here was clean, so they didn't get embarrassed with somebody with a Geiger counter over here checking their floor mats, because they had their people walking around on them. So, but again, the point is, we got sold out. We got sold out very, very quickly. If you're going to be prepared for any of this stuff, you're on your own. You need to do it yourself. So this document, the goodnewsnuke.com, if you leave here with anything, get that one written down. Keep that one. The one above it is linked in the goodnewsnuke.com document. So, but get the good news one in there. And what you're going to see in there is it talks about everything I've talked about with examples. What you're not going to see in there is any mention that we're even a business that sells products. And the reason we're doing that is that we know from past experiences the panicked hordes are going to be coming, and we're already sold out. And the last thing I want to be doing when we have millions of people grabbing this, desperately grabbing this document, what we don't want them doing is being distraught that, oh, I can't get this super product that I need to save myself. We don't want to. We're going to be sold out, so we're not going to be telling them what they could have, should have had. So this document's been written to give them everything they need to know without an instrument and how to do it. And honestly, that document with wide dispersion will actually save more lives than all the Geiger counters and meters we've sold for the last 25 years. Because it's really about avoiding needlessly becoming a casualty, because so much of this is avoidable. If 90% of the expected and projected casualties, they're not at ground zero. They're further out in the blast zone, and they're downwind in the fallout. And if you can avoid becoming a casualty, that's what the key is. In that document, it's just 4 pages. I first wrote it in 2006. It's twice the size. It's 4 pages now instead of 2. And I tweak it. It's a living document. I tweak it on a regular basis. Earlier this year, I just changed up a few things on it again. That document right there has the potential to save more lives than everything we've sold in 25 years. Now, something that I would also encourage you to do, if you read it, if you share my enthusiasm for it, it's a real eye-opener to why most people think that learning anything about civil defense when it comes to nuclear weapons is futile. Most people think it's a waste of time. If we took a walk out and interviewed 20 people at random out right here in front of the hotel and said, hey, what would you do if bright flash and you see this mushroom cloud, starting to rise up, and you know it's a nuclear weapon, what would you do? Well, 19 out of 20 people, if not all 20, are going to have, they're either not going to know, not have a clue, or they're going to say something like, bend over and kiss my tail goodbye. Does everybody agree with that? I mean, that is the attitude that we're having to deal with. And the reason for that, and we talk about it in that document in the beginning, the reason for that is we've had 70 years of the disarmament ban the bomb crowd ridiculing and deriding the civil defense program. They'll show a picture of a kid under a desk, back in the 60s. Did anybody do that? Anybody in here old enough to remember that? and they make a joke about it today. Now look, if you're at ground zero, if you're above ground zero, you're toast, okay? There's nothing I'm going to say here that's going to help you if you happen to be at ground zero, other than if you think you might be, move before, relocate, don't be in that city. But they've ridiculed that so much that when you see that, it's a big joke to everybody. People feel that it's futile to even try. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Whether you think you can survive a nuke or you think you can't, you're right. Because if you think you can't, you're not open to learning how you could. And when the time comes, your family's toast for lack of knowledge. And this, I got kids, I got grandkids, and these kids are in the schools. They're gonna run to the nearest window to see what that bright flash was, and their teachers, they don't know. They don't know to pull them back. So, anyways, go ahead and start with Good News Nuke, and it will go ahead and point into the document on top, which goes into more detail and shows you more of what's going on. It also gets into the second half of what I wanted to talk about here too, and that is, after you've survived the nuke happening, we have the unfortunate potential to lose more people from the disruption of services. Everything you take for granted is going to be turned off, shut down, unavailable. You're on your own. And you can't look at your great-grandparents and how they handled the Depression and pulled together and made it happen. And this is a different world. And, they had, back then, they had morals that not only sustained them, but restrained them. And if you think about it, I remember in 1965 in the Northeast, we had a blackout. Does anybody remember the big blackout there? We got some hands. Okay. So we're talking Eastern Canada and 8 states, and 30 million people or something are affected. Do you know what the big after effect was of that blackout back in that day? 9 months later, the maternity wards were jam-packed, okay? That's what happened. Now, contrast that now with what happens when we have any major city have a blackout. What do we got then? We got looting, we got rioting, just absolute mayhem. I mean, it's just nothing. And here's the thing to remember about the mayhem when you see it. Not a single one of those people doing that is worried about where their next meal's coming from. And they're doing that stuff already. Okay? So this is going to be a very, very hard thing to do, but at least go through the mental exercise, talk to your spouse about it. If you went home after this event, how would life be? If you went home, turned off the power, and turned off the water, okay, And all you got is all you got right there. How long are you going to be comfortable? Okay? Secure. This is what we're going to run into. The lights are going to go out. And a lot of the preparations that you might think about doing so that you do have water and you do have food and you've got energy and you've bought more prescription meds out, for 90 days instead of 30 days. When you've done all these things, this will serve you for any disruption of service, for the dollar collapsing, okay? For other civil unrest, this is going to be a very interesting year. It is not going to be boring going forward. And you're going to have, all the Antifa stuff is going to get, fired up, cranked up. You're going to want to stay at home. So give a thought to if the power went off and you don't have any electricity, the water's not flowing or it's questionable whether it's even clean, and you've got X amount of food, your freezer, everything in there. What do you do with all that food? I mean, you're going to have a barbecue for the whole neighborhood to cook all that food real quick. Think these things through so that you're not caught unawares. And if you do stock up, here's a really neat thing. You don't have to embrace all the pessimistic doom and gloom of why we got to buy all this extra food and stuff. Nowadays, all you got to do is want to save money. It's going to cost more in 6 or 8 months. So load up, just buy more of what you normally eat. Load up, put a date on it if you have to so you can rotate it so none of it goes bad and that sort of thing. But all you're doing is saving a trip to the store in the future, and you're probably going to save money. And anybody you know and love and care about, and friends and neighbors and stuff, encourage them to do the same thing. Because you want to be surrounded by like-minded people, and you want to have them on your team and convert them from being future roaming threats that didn't think about this stuff or didn't have somebody tell you about it. I'll tell you a funny story. We had Houston Channel 13 was to our place, and it's an all-day thing for him. So he spent a lot of time with us. He knew he was only going to get one story that day. So he was up there 2-3 hours, and we're talking all kinds of preparation stuff, not just nuclear, but just all the different reasons you'd want to have this and have that. So then he does his little interview, and he's getting in his car, and I'm standing in the door, and he's getting in his car, and before he gets in, he says, "Well, Shane, I'll tell you one thing. If the shit hits the fan, I know where I'm coming." And I said to him, I said, "You won't get anywhere near here then without the password." He says, "Password? What's the password?" "I brought all my own food." And I've done that to other people. And they'll come back with, "Well, that's not very Christian of you, I said, "Look, I'm building a lifeboat for my family. It's like an ark. It has limited capacity. I mean, if I knew the crisis was only going to be 6 months and I got a year's worth of food, I'll give away half of it. I would do that, but we don't know that." I said, "I'm doing my Christian duty by urging you to build an ark for your family too." And that's where it ends, So you got to think through all of these things. And how am I doing time-wise? Okay. Anyways, again, not only for yourself and your family, but your friends, neighbors, and relatives. You can print out a copy of that Good News Nuke, or just give them the link. And the best way to handle it is just simply say, "Give this a read and tell me what you think." Everybody wants to give their opinion. So you're not in a position of trying to sell them on it. But if you share my enthusiasm for it, goodnewsnuke.com, share it with your friends, neighbors, and relatives, and everybody you can, that you feel is, halfway reasonable. You want to be surrounded by like-minded people. okay? You want to build a community, you want to start these discussions and do what you can. Now, here's a way to inoculate your whole county. And when I talk inoculate, I mean we have the opportunity with this knowledge, if we get it out there, to make every nuclear weapon aimed at our community, our county, our neighborhood, 90% less lethal. Okay? I mean, that's what we're talking about. If people are trained up to avoid needlessly becoming casualties, we've just made all those nuclear weapons 90% less lethal. I mean, this is huge, you know? And shame on all the anti-nuclear ban the bomb people for ridiculing civil defense. They're going to have blood on their hands, okay? Because they've got everybody turned off that it's futile to even try. I mean, people are stunned. This is why I titled it, you know, the good news about nuclear destruction, because for most people they're like, what? What are you talking about? And it sucks them in because I know where they're starting from. And the good news, and we explain it really early, right up in the beginning, the good news is it's much more survivable than you thought when you know what to do and not do. So here's how you inoculate your whole community. And I look at it on the county level. Find out who your emergency manager is, your police chief, especially your fire department chief also. And you're going to hand him one of those good news nuke too and ask him for his opinion. There's a strong call in the end of it for them to be prepared with that document or any part of it that they want to use, they're free to. They need to be prepared that when something nuclear happens somewhere in the world, and then everybody's abuzz and concerned about it, because none of our communities are likely going to be the first place that gets hit, okay? It's most likely going to be somewhere else. And then everybody's in a panic, and everybody's open right then to, oh my God, what do we do? Have your, I mean, if they will get it in the newspaper sooner and start educating people, I'm thrilled. I'm doing this with my county. We're doing it with the fire department right now. And I'm working with the emergency manager. And what's going to happen is when something nuclear happens somewhere in the world, and again, it's probably not going to be your town first, but everybody's in a panic. We want that emergency manager to be ready with this material to instantly train everybody, get this information out. It doesn't take much longer than the time I've been up here to explain this. We're going to duck and cover with any bright flash, and we're going to shelter in place. And that second document, the one that's on the top, is linked in the first one, the Good News Nuke document, and it gets into more details of how you can pile up heavy stuff around you, et cetera, et cetera. Big thing is we just want to keep them from needlessly hurting themselves, getting into traffic and getting stuck out there. Because if you get stuck in that first 7 hours out there, you're going to have a lethal dose that it might take 2 weeks to kill you, but you're going to, wish it did it quicker. And it's so unnecessary. It's so needless, and that's the thing that really tears me up. The families, American families, are going to be, for no good reason, just for lack of knowledge. Okay, but again, the first thing is getting over that thought that it's futile to even try. And I think we do a good job in that document. That's what it was written for. We're not selling products in there or telling them anything about it. The second document, if they link to it near the end, we'll tell them, see if we got anything in stock. But we don't focus on it because I don't want somebody feeling like, because they're already borderline, because they're coming in that it's futile, and I don't want to be telling them, we're sold out of the one thing that would have, saved them, And by the way, too, Steve Jones, one of the things we're doing is we're stocking up the Oh Shucks meter. You can get a free one right outside on the table here before you leave. This has got a radiation-sensitive material in it, and basically it's a pass-fail type device. the panic is going to be far more widespread than the fallout, far more so. And people are going to be getting stampeded all over the place. If you know, everybody's talking this happened, that happened, something's in the air, and you pull this out of your wallet or your purse, ladies, and you look at it and it hasn't changed color yet, okay, then whatever's going on is not affecting you where you are right there, okay? And this is relatively inexpensive. Steve's been doing a yeoman's job getting these produced, getting them ready. We've got them in like 3 different locations. They're in freezers, so they're always going to be fresh to go. And you can get one free right outside right here. So do that. Avail yourself of that. Too much. Oh, yeah, I might do questions. You know? I'll tell you what, though, I'll read my favorite Proverbs, though, to wrap up. This is 22:3. A prudent man foresees the difficulties ahead and prepares for them. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences.